Good evening, everybody. I'm so happy that to be here tonight with my very special guest. I'm going to give a minute for some people to get into the room. And Kay, if you can adjust your phone because we are live on Instagram. So I want to give people a chance to kind of get in, but as you're coming in, let us know where you are tuning in from, and we will get started. I'm so excited tonight. As you all know, there are times that I'm here doing this solo, and then there are times that I have special guests. Well, tonight I have a very special guest, and I'll introduce her in a little bit. But just to remind everybody that, first of all, welcome to Mind the Mental Monday. And I just kind of want to remind everybody of what Mind the Mental Monday is all about. And because I haven't done that in a few weeks, and there may be some new people that are new to Mind the Mental Monday and who are just starting to tune in. And so I am Reverend Benita Weathers. I like to start with the caveat that I am not a licensed mental health professional, but I am a mental health advocate. And my reason for being a mental health advocate is that we in our family have dealt with mental health challenges, and we are very supportive of one another and making sure that we get through those challenges. So many of you have heard me speak about my husband and my daughters and my son. And I am excited tonight to have my youngest daughter, Kayla, who is gracing Mind the Mental Monday with me. So thank you so much, Kay, for joining us. Thank you for being willing to hang out with your mom tonight and talk about this thing called adulting and talk about mental health when you are newly adulting. And so just to give, before we get started, just to give a little bit of an introduction, one of the reasons for Mind the Mental Monday is to create space for people who may be going through some mental health challenges themselves, but also for people who are caregivers to others who might be facing some challenges mentally. And so we want this to be a safe space, a safe community where people are able to talk about some of the things that they might be going through, some of the issues that they might be going through. And I know that as an adult, so I'm like a grown adult, like grandmother adult. But adulting is hard for me, and I've been doing it for a long time. And so newly adulting, when you are newly sort of thrust into this space of being adult, and when you're thrust into this space of having to take care of your own bills and having to just all the things that we have to do as adults, it can be a tough space to be in initially, and mentally it could cause you to go through some things. And so I have with me tonight my youngest daughter, Kayla, who is she's a Gen Zer, and we're in a I'm a Gen X, and there's a lot between our generations that's different. Their adulting now is a little different, I think, than it maybe was back in the Stone Ages when I was sort of first starting to adult. Um, and so, just to give a brief introduction, Kayla is a 2022 graduate of the illustrious Clark Atlanta University. I have to plug my HBCU. We're very proud graduates of Clark Atlanta University. She is the owner and CEO of Boss Co., where her mission is to empower, inspire, and build confidence with boss women. I love that. Her graphics company is a subsidiary. So if you need graphics, if you're a boss and you need some graphics that can represent you, hit her up. Also, another subsidiary of Bosco is Bossy Lips, which I am proudly wearing right now. It is my favorite, not because my daughter is the owner of the company, but I really do like the lip gloss. It actually really is, it gives you a nice moisture without being sticky. Y'all know what I mean, ladies. You know what I mean. And so I love her lip line as well, that make you feel instantly like a boss. She is also a branding and marketing assistant at a local branding and marketing company. So let's welcome my baby girl, Kayla Weathers. Hey, Kay.
Hi, Mommy. Thank you for having me.
I'm happy to have you. It's a pleasure to have you. Um, First thing that I want to ask you about is, first of all, tell us just a little bit about yourself, about your career aspirations, and just kind of where you are right now in life.
I think you summed it up pretty good, but yeah, I'm a Clark Atlanta graduate. I currently have my own company called Bosco that I'm like developing. I do graphics, business cards, flyers, website development. I also have my own lip brand called Bossy Lips, and basically just through my brand and through the will of God, of course, I just want to be a positive impact on young women aspiring to be bosses in their own definition. You don't have to be an entrepreneur you don't have to be an entrepreneur to be a boss. So just feeling confident in whatever avenue that they want to go into. And I also aspire to one day be able to be a resource to young women. I want to be able to give them interview training, be able to provide clothes for interviews, job training, just anything they need to help them succeed, like in longevity in business. So that's basically what I aspire to do and what I'm currently doing. And I'm really still just honestly figuring everything out. I have a lot of hobbies and a lot of interests that I kind of see how I could turn into revenue. So kind of just figuring out which lane I want to like master first, and then go from there instead of focusing on so many things at once.
I mean, it's really good that you're understanding the need to sort of master one first, but it's also good to know and to understand that that you don't have to just stay in one lane, that you don't have to put yourself in that kind of a box, that you have many talents and abilities that can that can lead you or yield multiple streams of income for you. So I think I have to say that I don't think I was quite as together at 23 as you are, but I learn a lot from you. So tell me a little bit about how has newly tell me a little bit about your experience with newly adulting. What has that experience been like for you?
It's been real ghetto. 0 out of 10, don't recommend to anyone. But I knew since I'm the youngest, I had the privilege of being able to see, Jasmine and James kind of go through their adulting process before me. So I always knew adulting was ghetto. It was always something like I feel like I never wanted to rush to be an adult. I just knew it was something I had to do because I also like my independence. But yeah, like honestly been hard. It's definitely been a transition, and I feel like people don't really talk about like the transition into adulthood.
Mm,
Like I was working full time during my senior year of college, so I kind of and I was already like living on my own, paying my own bills. So I started kind of adulting before I graduated, but my college journey, just like a lot of people who graduate my year, college journey is a little different because we got hit with COVID. So I
mm,
think that kind of sped up my adoption process as well because it was like, okay, well, I don't want to be back home for a couple of years, so I just kind of need to figure it out so I could be able to stay in Atlanta since like on campus living is like not an option anymore. But back to just like the transition to adulting, I feel like it's not really talked about enough because if you think about it, you spend like you go from like when you're 3 years old up until you're 21, 22, 23, whatever age you finish college. And like that's all is like go to school and maybe in like your breaks and then like but you're always going back into school. Especially people that go from bachelor straight into their master's, straight into their doctor's degree. Now that's even more years where you just know the structure of going to school and kind of building your life around that schedule. So we transition to a time where it's like I don't have to get up and go to class and I don't have to turn in assignments at a certain time and it's just like full blown work. Like I don't have the same breaks anymore. Like it's a very like tough transition.
mm. Yeah, you mentioned the structure being different. I think the biggest difference is that you are, as an adult, once you're out of school, you are now responsible for your own structure. Whereas when you're in school, the school basically tells you this is the structure. You have a whole syllabus, ahead of time that you can look at and you know what to expect the entire semester. But when you're in the workforce, it's a lot different. And you recently was a little upset because you realize that in this adulting world, is the breaks aren't the same. So where you had a break and you could just come home for a month, for the most places call it a winter holiday. When you're working, that's you don't get that break. So tell me about your experience with that and kind of what impact does that have on you on your mental health?
Um, I think even though in the moment it felt negative, I honestly think it had a positive impact on my mental health from the perspective of it forced me to like come in the realization that okay, like you're really in this new chapter of life. You're really an adult. You have to let go of the version of you that only knows you have maybe like a month break or whatever. And then the type of lifestyle that I'm trying to accomplish and work up to is it might be even less of a break than that. So it was kind of just like a wake up call for me in a way. And also I tried to, I feel how I feel in the moment and allow myself to feel, but I always try to like turn it back around and see and like take the lesson out of what I'm going through instead of just basking in negativity and basking in my own pity. Like I allow myself to like be sad about it for I try to give myself, depending on the situation, 24 to 48 hours to be in my feelings about it. And then it's just kind of like, okay, Kayla, like, what's next? Because you just sitting in this energy is not doing nothing for you. So it's time to like just get up and go. So I will say I don't think it really had like a negative impact on my mental health. It was just, a tough realization because like, yeah, it's like acceptance that I'm in the adult world, but it's like, okay, like I'm not going to be able to see my family as much or, my friends back at home as much. So it's just kind of like bittersweet in a way.
Mhm. You mentioned a little bit ago about how no one really prepares you for adulting. You said you spend from the first time that you might kind of know something, like around the age of 3, and then you go all the way up through high school, and then maybe through college. Not everybody has that trajectory, and then you're kind of thrust into this. Okay, like you got to get pushed out the nest, or like you got to kind of take care of yourself. Are there things that you think that your parents, our generation, could do, or could have done to better prepare you for this? And what would that look like to you?
Mm, I think that's kind of pretty like subjective, only because like I was, by the grace of God, you and dad have been extremely supportive and I feel like I can speak for Jasmine and James and saying like y'all been extremely supportive in all of our adulthood, all of our transition to adulthood. Like I feel like y'all always encouraged us to spread our wings and fly, and always reassured us that if we, fall too deep, we always have a home to come back to, and always give like us advice when we're in our little pits. So I was just, I thank God for you and dad because I have supportive parents. Some people um have parents that like soon as they turn 18, it's like, okay, you're an adult, like just figure it out whatever. And like I think that a problem, the not a problem, but I think sometimes maybe your generation, um what they have a habit of is like, well, I had to get it together by this age, so I'm expecting you to do the same thing. But it's like they kind of forget the mental turmoil that they had to go through when forced to deal with it by themselves at the age. But we also know, like your generation, mental health was very much so like a taboo subject. It really didn't even exist like in the Black community. It was really just like deal with the problems and move forward. And so I think y'all's generation could maybe just have a little bit more patience when it comes into um us going into adulthood. And that doesn't mean become like an enabler, but still, be able to have patience and know that if you see them trying, then be of support, because you think you're giving tough love, but it could come off very much belittling and
Mhm.
discouraging. So, and then it could push them into whatever avenue they feel they got to go into to make it work for them. And so, you want to have like be like a positive supporter and have positive impact. And I don't want to like keep dwelling on the question, but even just on the receiving end, um, what when for like my for people like me that's adulting, I think it just depends on the person that you are too, because like I'm the type of person that I'm just like I might feel how I feel and complain in the moment, but like I'm always gonna make a plan and execute it, and I'm always going to try to figure it out. And I'm just determined, like that's just how I am. So you find yourself that you're just not determined, and you just need to start, looking at your space, looking at your friend group, looking at your routine, so that you can pinpoint why you feel like you're just in a constant circle of a constant cycle, or why you just feel okay with being complacent. Because I feel people that struggle with adulthood is because they start having like comfortability and being
Mm.
complacent, and you can't do that like with adulting.
So what advice or strategies can you offer to your peers for ways to manage your mental health, as you are growing and learning, and getting into this thing called being an adult, and being totally self-sufficient.
The advice I would give is um okay, two different perspectives. Like for the people who are still living with their parents and looking to transition into like living on their own, sit down and make a plan. Like times is so hard right now. The last thing you want to do is just move and not have a plan. Sit down, make a plan, write down like just how much income you're going to need, how much income you're going to need to maintain your living. Give yourself a deadline, save for application fees, for the first rent deposit. Like just make sure you write a plan and make sure that you save accordingly, because when you make that transition, you want to make sure you have a cushion so that you don't end up behind. And for the people who are already living on their own, just you're gonna have to get used to the word sacrifice. When I was in college and I was getting them refund checks and I was working at the same time and I was just living on campus, like I thought I could move like anybody. Like I could, invest in my clothes. I was buying clothes, hair, shoes, like going out. Like I was just balling. Like, but I wasn't thinking about the bigger picture. So I say that to say, like, when you're living on your own, sometimes you're not gonna be able to go out with your friends every weekend, and that's okay. If they're your friends, they're gonna understand. Like, hey, we all going through it. Like, we'll bring the fun to you. You get like that's just kind of how you have to move. Just sacrifice. Like no matter how much you make, try to put a little bit away. And if you don't have the means to save right now, make a plan to get the income that you want to get so that you're able to save. And then the last thing I'm gonna say, and this goes for both parties, ones looking to kind of go ahead and transition to adulthood, living on their own, and those already in that stage in life, just give yourself more grace. I feel like because we live in a day and age of social media, it's like an expectation that you're supposed to have it all together and be a multimillionaire. Because I used to have that same like put that same stigma on me, like by this age, and it gotta happen by this time. And it's people that our age that got this, and that. So we start feeling the need to like compare ourselves to other people's journey. Your journey is always gonna be your journey, and that's okay because it needs to work out how God wants it to work out for you. Just like their journey is their journey. So don't walk in like with the spirit of like envy or comparison, because you can't get mad at somebody else's blessing, because once the blessing comes to you and God makes it a full circle moment for you, then it's going to make sense why everything is aligning in the time that it's aligning. Sometimes you have to be real with yourself and say, I'm just not ready right now, and that's okay. I know I kind of went off on a tangent, but that's basically moral of the story. Just give yourself more grace.
It's a really good tangent, and it's something that we talk about a lot on Mind the Mental, because I was saying, I think last week, as a matter of fact, that it's not just your generation, it's not just a younger generation that sort of is in like this comparison mode. I was talking last week just about a really bad depression that I had gotten in, and when I really figured it all out, what I circle it back to is that I was comparing myself. I was comparing myself to other people in my generation who were doing things that I think, or at levels that I think I should be at by now, and that I'm not. And so I really so that goes for all the generations. I think we all have that thing of where we compare ourselves, but I think it's more prevalent now that there is social media, because when I was 23, there wasn't social media. So there wasn't so much of that as it is now, with your generation, and just recognizing that everybody on social media is going to show the best parts of what's going on. And sometimes you come to find out that the people that really look like they have a whole lot going on actually don't. There have been some people that were like homeless, but they would show these clips like they had all this money, so it's one of those things that you have to really be okay in your own skin, be okay as your authentic self. What would you say is one of the most challenging things that you have experienced in this sort of newly adulting process?
Mm, the most challenging, honestly, is probably managing bills, to be completely transparent. It's
Mhm.
so tough, even in this economy, like, because it's like groceries are about 3 times as price than it was a few years ago. So when back in the day, well, I know economies is different, but like $50 could get you a lot more. Now $50 at the store is getting me some eggs, some milk, and I'm lucky if I got change. Like it's like crazy. So just feeling like you just working 25/8 and not really being able to like reap the benefits of like what you're sowing, because it has to like now it's like you have responsibilities, so you have to take care of that first before you could do anything. So it's like feel like you moving ahead but being pulled back at the same time, because it's like you want to invest in certain things but you can't because you got bills to pay. Like it's just always bills, 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 and I'm sick of it.
I think you're not alone in that. I think, bills, bills, bills. Destiny's Child wrote a song about it many years ago, but yeah, it is a fact of life that you have to pay bills in order to live in this world. And your grandfather used to refer to it as deferred gratification, and I remember him saying that all the time. And I remember being sick of it. Like, I don't want to defer gratification. I want it now. But you have to, what was the term you use? Sacrifice, right? You have to sacrifice in the meanwhile in order to get to the place that you want. And if you have a goal set, like you said, of this is the way I want to live, and if I want to live this way, this is how much I need to make, and if I want to make this much, this is what I need to do to get there. That mapping out, a plan. So if you were coaching someone, one of your peers, or someone who's coming up behind you in sort of how to sort of make a plan, how would you coach them? How would what are the steps to making a plan, and how has that been, um how have you benefited from making plans?
um well, one, I would say just come up with long-term goals and like your short-term goals.
Hmm.
So like examples of your short-term goals is things that you want to accomplish 1 to 6 months from now. And your long-term goals is what you want to accomplish a year to 5 years from now. So separate the two. And then with each goal, you gotta answer like what we learned back in grade school, like the 5 W's. So who, what, why, where, when.
Hmm.
It sounds childish, but when you hit on every point, because what you don't want to do is map out a plan for your life or map out a. Sorry, I don't want to like. I don't mean to go backwards, but that's why being in prayer is important when mapping out your plans as well. Because the last thing I was two things. You don't want to map out a plan that don't align with God. And something that I learned, I forget who said this, but they said when you write down your plan, say God is, and then say your plan. And if the sentence doesn't align, that's how you know the plan is not from God. So you making sure that whatever you want to do is aligning with God's principles as well. And then secondly, you don't want to map out a plan of what you think you want to do, and then you actually find out that that's not what you want to do at all. So taking time to really sit down and say, okay, these are my passion, these are my hobbies. Like, what would you do for free? It sounds really cliche, but it's going to help you identify what you need to start working towards. So, what do I want to do for free? What do I really have a passion for? And then if you have multiple things, then from that list, you just pinpoint which one you feel like is the most priority, which one you like yearn from the most, and then put together a plan of how you can make revenue off of it. And don't think that it's going to happen tomorrow. I did a lot for free before I started really, like charging people. And that was, again, going back in the sacrifice. That's just a sacrifice I made to be able to build my portfolio and also build my clientele. Now the people that I've done stuff for free will come back to me and pay whatever price I say the price is, because they know my work and they know like the person that I am. So I hope that answered the question.
It did. And it also kind of goes into your character and your integrity. Because once you sort of go into business for yourself, your integrity to your client will speak volumes, and it's what will have them to go and tell everybody else, hey, get this bossy lips. It's what will help to sell. Now, one thing I'll let the audience know is that having known Kayla since literally birth, Kayla has always had a knack she's always had an entrepreneurial spirit. So she started her first business in, I don't know, what, fourth grade?
No, it was like in middle school.
Middle school.
So the first official business.
Right, but you started getting practice early. And so it's something that's always been, it's sort of a natural part of who she is. And so, it's exciting for me as her mom to see where she is now. That, I knew from the age of 3, I tell Kayla this story all the time, but at 3 years old, how you go on a trip and kids, you let your kid like get something, some kind of memento from the trip. And most of kids are going to want some kind of little toy, right? But at 3 years old, Kayla wanted a wallet. And Kayla she would collect wallets. So that's how I knew. I'm like, this one is gonna be she's gonna be a moneymaker. Kayla, Carla wants to know how someone can purchase your items. This is someone that's tuning in on Facebook.
So Bossy Lips is currently in the stage of rebranding. Quick backstory, I created Bossy Lips back in 2020. And so it's been a few years, and I kind of feel like I'm more of an adult than I was when I first started. So in the process of rebranding Bossy Lips, just wanted to like be more mature and like, more of a professional look. But I do still have gloss colors, so you can either contact me directly or my mom, and I'll let you know what colors I have, and I can just send it to you that way. And then with my graphics, you can contact me directly for that too. But also, there's a link in my bio that kind of lists all my services. So if you go swipe over to graphics, you could book there as well.
So Carla, I don't know if you are also on Instagram, but Kayla is on Instagram as
the official Boss K, just the letter K.
the official Boss K. But we can definitely get you in touch with her. So what are some strategies that you currently use to manage your mental health?
Definitely prayer. Definitely prayer. I don't know the scripture by heart, and I'm probably gonna mess up the words, but one scripture I always go back to is that God doesn't make you in the spirit of fear, but in light, love, and
God doesn't give you the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind.
yes, that. I always go back to that scripture when, especially when I started having feelings of like anxiety and depression and things like that, because it's a reminder that God is not the one who's making me feel this way. Like it's like a tactic of the enemy. This is not the spirit that I made it. So it helps me kind of combat it. But sometimes just being completely transparent, that's not enough. So something else that I do is just journal how I'm feeling. Um, Also just kind of going on a hiatus. Like I have a very demanding job, but the little times where things are kind of offline, I might like turn my phone on airplane mode for like 30 minutes just so I could decompress and just like have time to myself. And definitely affirmations. I say affirmations to myself in the mirror every single day. The last thing that really helped me with like managing my mental health, it's gonna sound really weird, but like when I'm in public, walking with my head up high, which is something that my dad has always said for us to do. Even like when I was coming up younger, but like doing that, it just makes you feel way more confident because it don't the little thoughts in your mind, they start to go away when you're sorry, I'm trying to word this the right way, but like if you're walking down and you're just walking with your head down, it makes it easier for the enemy to attack your mind because you're focused on the floor on a level that you don't want to be at, and you're in your head. But you're walking with your head up high and you're looking at your path, it reminds you like to keep looking forward. Like the enemy can't attack your mind if you're constantly thinking about what you're doing to move forward. So those are some of my tips.
That's great. That's really good. That's one that I hadn't heard before. That if you're looking down, it sort of the gravity of it kind of even pulls you down. So look up. I love that.
Because also just to kind of piggyback off of it even more, we all know that like the power of your tongue is very powerful. Like your words have meaning. But if you think about it, when you're talking and when you're saying words, you're just using a language. It's the same with your body. So you gotta pay attention to your body language because you're manifesting. That's a form of like you manifesting something over yourself or speaking something over yourself that you don't want. So if your body language is always just slummed and tired and just looking down, then you're always going to feel like you're slummed and tired and worthless. But when you set up right and like you're just head forward and your head up, now you're speaking confidence, like I'm worthy, like I deserve respect. When people see that body language, that's what you're attracting to you. So it's just paying attention to the small things because I feel like body language is talked about enough when it comes to, tactics on, help like managing your mental health as well.
I really like that. I want you to go a little deeper, with that. That the importance of body language. What are some other types of body language, or maybe even other posturings that can help you to have a better mental outlook?
Something I would say too is just like, well, one, it just kind of like how you come off is gonna look weird. But crossing your arms, I had to learn how to not cross my arms. But what I learned about why I went to crossing my arms is because it was a type of defense mechanism.
Mhm.
So like when I'm crossing my arms, I want to give off the presence that like I'm not inviting. I don't want anyone to like come in. I'm not someone to be played with, basically. But you can like have a demeanor that you're not a person to be played with and that you deserve respect, but also sending out like a spirit of like love and like compassion. So practicing just being more open, it's like really what I could say what helped me the most, because I'm just naturally, like, anyone who knows me will tell you, like, I'm not an affectionate person at all. Do not come over to me with no type of hugging for too long or whatever. So I try to balance that by like, well, I got a little bit better at the hugging and stuff. But with my body language, I try to practice just being a little bit more open, because I'm a naturally like, I guess I look a little bit intimidating, just off the rip. So I try to be a little bit more open in my body, my posture.
That's really good. Yeah, and Kayla is right. And this, if anybody out there who is listening and is a friend of hers or whatever, and if she's not very affectionate, she wasn't very affectionate with me either. But I knew that she loved me, right? She was just not about the. She's kind of like my mother was that way too. Like just not a very. I'm a very huggy person, and I even have tried to pull back on that and try to make sure that other people are okay with hugs. But my natural inclination is to hug. That's not Kayla's natural inclination, but now Kayla gives the best hugs. Well, to me as her mom. Um, and I'm enjoying them. So, well, is there anything else? And if anybody has any questions for Kayla, if especially those of you who might be parents to people to adults, the whole sort of parenting adults is also a thing, and something that we have to kind of get used to, cutting those apron strings. And as hard as it is sometimes, we have to kind of let them find their way, without you to help as much as you can, but not help too much that they become so dependent on you. You want them to be independent and self-sufficient and working towards that. And so if anyone has questions about that, go ahead and drop them in the comments. But is there anything else, Kayla, that you think is important for us to know and understand about balancing, managing mental health as you are adulting and as you are in this, newly adulting process?
Yeah, just want to reiterate patience with the people that's making those transitions. That goes for family and friends. I didn't really get this from family, but I know like some of my friends, when I got like when I was in my transition to adulthood, and I had like very well, even the job I worked at before this was very demanding. My schedules changed, and so it was a period in my life where, like, in my friend group, I feel like I was kind of looked at as like the support system. Like, people came to me for advice, like to be poured into and things like that. But when I started adulting, I had to go into what I call my selfish season. where it's like, okay, like I can't help you if I can't even help myself. And so I wasn't calling people as much, and I wasn't texting people as much, and I wasn't making plans with people as much. But that's not because it was like any love loss or anything like that. It's just I had to refocus. And so I said to say, if someone that you know isn't calling you as much or texting you as much, of course, like use spirit of discernment, but instead of just going straight into thinking that they're acting funny or they're distancing themselves from you or they're choosing people over you, you know, reach out to them and ask them, are they okay? Like sometimes they could be battling a whole battle and you don't even know. Like, don't be so caught up in your entitlement, like sense of entitlement to people's time, that you don't take time to really think like, well, maybe I haven't heard from them because they're going through something, you know? Because when you're adulting, I think a lot of us want to be an adult so bad that we try not our best not to lean on people. And one way we deal with that is by pulling back completely and just dealing with our mental health feelings, situations by ourselves. And so that can put us in a very dark place. And I'm talking from experience. So definitely, if you notice someone who was once constantly in contact with you, kind of just like they're not contacting you as much, like don't take it personal, don't take it to heart. Reach out and make sure that they're okay. And you know, it's acceptance on both ends. Like just like we're accepting that we're coming into adulthood, on the other end, y'all have to accept that this is a new chapter in life. So no, we're not going to be hanging out every day. No, we're not going to be texting every day. No, we're not going to be calling every day. We got lives to live. And that's just the truth.
We have lives to live, and I definitely like that. One of the things that we say often to that you alluded to just now is to check on your strong friends, check on the strong people, the people that you come to the most and lean on the most, because sometimes they need somebody to lean on. Sometimes they need a shoulder to cry on. And so that's very good advice that you've given. And I just got to say it publicly. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
I'm proud of all of my babies, but I'm proud.
Really quick, I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead.
Just to even bring it back full circle, like to me, and like how I noticed my growth and how I really become an adult. And this is something that you and dad can attest to, especially like when I was growing up and coming up. I never liked to be by myself. I always wanted a friend over. I always wanted to go over someone's house. When my siblings went to college, I was so depressed because I was like, now I'm about to just be home alone. Like I hated being home alone. And now I live alone. Like sometimes you gotta like really pry me. Like if I'm out, it's because it's something dealing with work. Like a great Saturday to me is on my couch, snuggled up, watching movies. Like, and that's just how I know I've grown and I've really entered adulthood, is because I don't feel the need to be around everyone's energy, and it's just so draining. Like I'm just comfortable in just being alone. And that's something that people that are adulting, they're gonna have to master loneliness and not look at it as a bad thing. Or everyone has to go through a season of, I wouldn't even say loneliness, of separation. Sometimes you just have to separate from the outside world for your own development. And that means letting go of old habits, old people, old seasons, old cycles. Sometimes you're not going to notice what that is until you have your season of separation. So if you feel like you're losing friends and you falling out with everyone and you just kind of feel like it's too many transitions happening at once, that's a sign that God is just pushing you into separation because he's preparing you for a new season.
Good. Absolutely. And it's not selfish. It's definitely not selfish to take time for yourself. You have to take care of yourself. and as we say all the time, you can't take care of anybody else without putting that oxygen mask on yourself first. And so it's necessary. And it's not that you don't love people anymore. It's not that you have anything against them, but if they're draining you and if they are causing you to regress instead of progress, then as hard as it might be, sometimes you just gotta cut them loose. And that's okay. I just want to thank you again for just, Jill said that's a book title. That is, yes.
Wait, what?
Season of Separation. She said,
oh.
thank
you.
Yes.
I gotta think about that.
I'm looking for something to come out from you. But thank you again for taking time out of your schedule. You definitely have a very busy schedule, and but I appreciate that you took some time to hang out with your mama for a few minutes.
Thank you for having me. It's such an honor.
That means the world to me. So I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight on Mind the Mental Monday. I hope that you are able to get some good nuggets. Whether you are, the parent of somebody who is newly adulting, or if you are, if you just know somebody who is going through that transition, just taking some of the advice that Kayla mentioned about having patience and giving them grace, just like you needed some grace when you were starting to newly adult. So look forward to you tuning in next week. Next week, I have another very, very special guest. My oldest daughter, Jasmine, is going to be joining me next week, and she is a new mom, and so we're going to be talking about minding the mental, the next generation, and just talking about minding minding your mental health as a new mom, but also what kinds of things do you want to teach your children about mental health, and so that they grow up with healthy mental health habits. So I'm looking forward to her joining next week. Who knows? We might even get a sneak peek at my granddaughter. We'll see if she'll make a guest appearance. But so I'm excited about that, and I hope that everyone has a wonderful and blessed week. And remember to mind the mental every day. God bless. See you next week.
Bye.
See you next week.